kind of like, is it just me? Or does, like, turning on the news these days feel like stepping on one of those Legos in the dark? You know what I mean? The world situation, economy.
Oh, tell me about it. And even the upcoming elections, it's almost like we're just reliving all the intense moments of the past few years all over again. And then you layer on, all the personal stuff everyone's dealing with on top of that.
It's enough to make you want to, like, hide under a weighted blanket and call it a day.
Yeah, sometimes hope feels about as easy to find as my car keys on a Monday morning. Let's put it that way.
Right. Okay, so we're diving into something today that I think promises a little more uplifting energy. We've got excerpts from this sermon, always ready, Sharing the Hope Within, and it's by Pastor J-Anthony.
And wow, does he start strong. He talks about this guy, right? And this man has lost, like, everything. His job, his health, even people he loved. But here's the thing. His faith, totally unshakable.
It makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Like, how is that even possible?
Yeah.
To face that much loss and still hold on to hope.
Exactly. And the way Pastor Dargan tells it, the man, when people ask him how he stays so strong, you know what he says? He says, my hope isn't in the things I've lost, but in the one who remains. Powerful, right?
Absolutely. It gets to the core of faith, It's easy to have hope when things are good, but real faith, it shines brightest when things are tough.
So true. I like that. So where does this hope come from? Well, Pastor Dargan says that everyone with faith, they have this, like, unique and profound testimony. It's not just about getting through your own tough times, but being that hope for other people.
It's like when you find strength, it spreads out.
Yeah. And that leads into the whole point of the sermon, this idea of being ready to explain your hope. To anyone who asks. He even quotes 1 Peter 3, which says, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But then he does something really interesting. Instead of just jumping into how to share faith, he talks about the story of Peter.
Which totally makes sense when you think about it. I mean, Peter's story.
Yeah.
Talk about ups and downs in faith.
Right. Peter, he was one of Jesus' disciples and known for being bold, This is the guy who walked on water with Jesus. That takes guts.
No kidding. But then, and this is where it gets really human, Peter messes up big time.
Yeah.
He's scared, and he denies even knowing Jesus.
Right.
Not once, but 3 times.
It's hard to imagine, right? How much regret he must felt. It reminds you that we're all human. Even people we think of as super devoted, we all make mistakes.
And that's what's so great about Peter's story. Because even after that, Pastor Dargan points out that he finds forgiveness. Remember, after Jesus rises from the dead, the angel appears and tells the disciples to go spread the word. And he specifically says, and Peter.
Oh, wow, I never thought of it like that. Even after messing up so publicly, he's still included. That's hopeful, don't you think? Like, it shows that no matter what you've done, you can be forgiven.
It reminds you that we all mess up, that we all get second chances.
You said it. None of us are perfect, right? But here's the thing with Peter. It's not just that he's forgiven. It's like his story. It becomes this whole other thing. He ends up being really important in the early church, telling people about Jesus even after what happened.
It's like Pastor Dargan is connecting the dots for us. Like, he's saying, look, if Peter can turn things around and become this amazing example of hope, we can too, even with all our flaws.
Exactly. So now we get to the how-to part. We know sharing hope is good, but how do we do it? Pastor Dargan, he gives us 3 things to remember. The first one, it really made me think, revere Christ as Lord. And he's not just talking about going through the motions,
Right. It's not about checking boxes. He means really, truly putting Christ at the center of your life, letting your faith guide your choices, what you do, everything.
And he uses the church in Ephesus as an example. They were busy doing all the church things, but something was missing.
It's like you can do the right things without really feeling it, Pastor Dargan wants us to get that real devotion is about more than just actions. It's about your heart and mind being in the right place, aligned with Christ's teachings.
He also talks about the story of the rich young ruler. Remember him? He had money, seemed religious, but he couldn't let go of his possessions to follow Jesus.
It reminds us that sometimes faith means sacrifice. It's about figuring out what we might be putting before our faith, what might be holding us back from really living it.
It makes you think, what are we holding on to that maybe we should let go of so we can really live our faith, really put Christ first?
It's a good question to ask ourselves, and it leads right into Pastor Dargan's second point. Be ready. When our faith is real and when we really feel it, sharing it isn't a chore. It's just natural, like something overflowing.
I love that, overflowing. It's like when you're so happy you can't help but tell someone, right? Or if you find something amazing, you want to share it. It's not forced. It's just who you are.
And that's the being ready part. It's about really being present, noticing those moments when what you've been through, good or bad, could be exactly what someone needs to hear. Maybe it's a kind word, listening to someone, or telling them about your own faith journey.
That brings us to the last thing Pastor Dargan talks about, and I think this is so important. Gentleness and respect are key, especially now when talking about faith can be like a sensitive topic. He's saying we need a different approach, one that starts with understanding.
That's what really got me about this sermon. It's not about being right or pushing your beliefs on people. Yeah. It's about seeing everyone as valuable no matter what they believe.
It's about building bridges, not walls, right?
Exactly. And Pastor Dargan doesn't just say it. He tells you what that looks like. He says, don't argue or blame. Instead, make a safe space for dialogue so people feel heard and respected.
He even says not to be too forceful, which I think is so important. It's easy to get carried away when you care about something. But sometimes the best way to share your faith is just by listening, being there for someone, meeting them where they are.
Yeah, it's like you might not remember exactly what someone said, but you remember how they made you feel, right? When you come at it with gentleness, with respect, that's how you really connect with someone. That's where understanding comes from.
And he uses this phrase, Pastor Dargan, he says, speak the truth with love. It's not about changing what you believe. It's about remembering that how you say it matters too.
It's so true. Like that saying, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar, right? You can be strong in your beliefs, but still be kind.
And sometimes it's not even about the words, is it? Sometimes the best way to share your faith is just by living it, letting your actions speak for themselves.
Totally. It goes back to that first point, putting Christ first in your life. When you really believe, it shows, People see that, and it makes them curious. It opens up these conversations that you might never have had otherwise.
It's that saying, actions speak louder than words. People might forget what you said, but they remember how you treated them, how you lived.
Exactly. And you know what? This whole idea of building bridges, it's not just for religion, is it? It's for everything.
That's what hit me about this sermon. It goes beyond just faith. It's about remembering that we're all human.
Right.
Trying to understand each other, even when we don't agree.
Choosing to be kind instead of judgmental. Listening more than talking. Always looking for that common ground. It's not always easy, but man, the world could use a little more of that.
Amen to that. Well, that's our deep dive into Always Ready, sharing the hope within. We'll leave you with this. Pastor Dargan reminds us that true faith, it's not about appearances. It's about having love in your heart, being kind, and always trying to connect, even when it's hard. So this week, think about where you can build a bridge instead of a wall.
We hope you've enjoyed this podcast based on the Sunday, October 6th sermon, which is the 5th installment in the series, Who's Gonna Tell 'Em?, entitled Always Ready, Sharing the Hope Within. It's based on 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15, and it was preached by our very own pastor, Reverend J-Anthony Dargan. And if you've enjoyed it, why not share it? Also, be on the lookout for a new episode every Tuesday. Subscribe to our channel for alerts when we drop a new episode. We invite you to join in our live discussion about Sunday sermon every Wednesday at 7 p.m. on our conference line. Telephone number 605-313-4831. Access code 869360. Come join us for live worship every Sunday at 10 a.m. at Congregational Church of God, located at 1889 Amsterdam Avenue between West 153rd and 154th Streets in New York, New York. But if you can't come out, we live stream on YouTube on our channel, CCOGNYC, and on our Facebook page at Congregational Church of God, NYC. God bless you, and look forward to meeting you online and in person.